Recording in progress. Creator, I ask you tonight to allow our eyes to see beautiful things in the next few days. I ask you that we are able to use our ears to hear beautiful things. I ask, Creator, that our mind allows us to think beautiful things, that our legs take us to the beautiful places we need to see, and of course, that our heart forever and always one last song. This one is a gathering song that's going to welcome everybody from wherever you are from to know that you are loved, you are welcome, and you are safe here on this beautiful land of Abagwit in the nation of Mi'kma'ki. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy this beautiful evening and all you are going to be experiencing tonight. Walalio, thank you.
I feel energized already. I don't know about you. Thank you so much. That was fabulous. Much appreciated. Now I'd like to call on Patsy Vidihagen and Ariane Malera Erlana, two of our board members, with some opening remarks and announcements.
Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Julie, for wakening our hearts. And just want to welcome everybody here on behalf of the ASI Board of Directors and let you know that we have probably the first time since for 4 years, since before COVID, that everybody has been together. And there have been new people come on the board, and we've never met each other in person until today. So we really want to acknowledge that, how things have changed and how wonderful it is to come together, and ask that any of the board members who are here can raise their hands and come forward after the session for a photograph, because it's real, we're three-dimensional, it's great. And before we start to go too far on this, we just want to let you know that there are interpretation services via Zoom, which is through your Whova app. But to access that, you do need to use your phone and your little personal ear sets to hear the service. So there are 2 or 3 speakers who will be speaking in French, and that might be something you want to try out, experiment with. It works very well when you're at a distance. So we're experimenting now to see how well it works when we're all present in the room as well. So you can give us some feedback on it, but we're going to work at it so that we can have room for different languages learning together in the same space and do it in a way that's using technology in a different way. So I turn over. Okay, can you hear me better now? I'll let Ariane pick it up and say a few more things.
Well, yeah, maybe I can restate that message about interpretation in French. Donc, bienvenue, merci d'être parmi nous. Si vous êtes à la salle, mais aussi de façon virtuelle, c'est certain, ça fait plaisir de vous accueillir. Juste une petite remarque que nous avons des services d'interprétation disponibles durant tous les forums. Vous aurez besoin de vos écouteurs. Si vous êtes ici dans la salle, évidemment, vous aurez besoin de vos écouteurs et de vos cellulaires pour accéder aux services d'interprétation simultanée. Nous n'avons pas un interprète sur la salle, mais tout ça, c'est disponible à travers de l'application Whova que l'Institut d'été a fait disponible pour pouvoir faire l'événement de façon hybride. Alors, tous les services d'interprétation sont disponibles par Zoom. So.
Okay.
Oh, yes. And thank you for listening to that. And now we would also like to thank you for being here and for taking the time to join us. This is the 18th forum that ASI hosts, which is amazing. And there's so many people who have contributed to this program. So we really just want to take a moment to say thank you to the planning committee, to the communications, the working group, the Indigenous working group, as well as the working group that was around the youth planning and the children's program. So thank you. This program wouldn't be possible without all of your implications. So thank you so much. Merci et Wilawin. So we're going to give them a round of applause.
So this year we have over 130 registrants, and of that, 25 are young leaders, youth leaders, who are here, and they're all wearing the blue shirts right now. So you get a sense of who's in the room, and they've been working all day today and last night, and coming together, convening, getting to know each other, and also developing some new skills. They're here so that we can also hear their voices, and we can all learn from each other. So anytime there's an opportunity to be at a table where you got to really dig into an issue, I'm sure you'll hear the younger voice and the younger experience. You want to talk?
Yes, and we also want to say a huge thank you to our supporters and our sponsors as well. We, last year, as some of you may know, we mobilized, we launched the policy brief that was called the Upstream Investment and Promoting Mental Health. We launched that with the funding support of the Public Health Agency of Canada through their Intersectoral Action Fund. So a huge thank you to them for helping us in really launching this very important document, the policy brief, that was helping us to put forward those recommendations, as well as the PEI Alliance for Mental Well-Being. You were going to learn a lot more about this work throughout the forum. Donc, encore une fois, on a lancé la mémoire l'année dernière pour justement promouvoir la mémoire de l'Institut de l'été grâce au partenariat et au soutien de l'Agence de la santé publique du Canada dans le secteur d'expérience en action intersectorielle ainsi qu'à travers de l'Alliance de l'île du Prince-Édouard pour la santé mentale et le bien-être. And this year has really been about mobilizing that policy brief.
And in keeping, one more thing, in keeping with our commitment to building relationships with Indigenous communities, you may note on the poster that there are 4 words that have been translated into English, French, and 4 Indigenous languages, and thanks to Indigenous Services Canada. They are inspire, welcome, hope, and community. So if you look around the border and also in the watermark, you'll see that those languages are there. So you can have a look. We really are appreciative of that. So we trust you enjoy your time at ASI and the opportunity to come together. And I'm going to turn it over to Malcolm. Oh, and by the way, I don't have a name tag. So I'm probably one of the only people here that doesn't have a name tag. But if you're looking for me, my name is Patsy.
I think everybody knows Patsy, right?
Thank you, Patsy and Ariane. Well, we have some dignitaries and officials with us here this evening, and we want to give them an opportunity to say a few words. So we're going to start with the Honorable Mark McLean, who's the Minister of Health and Wellness for PEI. Mark was elected as the MLA for District 16, Cornwall Meadowbank, in a November 2021 by-election, and again in the 2023 general election. He was appointed Minister of Health and Wellness in April 2023, having previously served as Minister of Finance and member of the Standing Committee on Education and Economic Growth. Mark?
Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you for inviting me here to this event. And for those delegates visiting PEI, welcome. I hope that the weather is good for you this weekend and that you enjoy everything that PEI has to offer. I want to especially welcome Dr. Brenda Restool and Tyler Simmons. I'm sure we look forward to hearing your insights on mental health and well-being from the perspective of Indigenous and racialized community members. This weekend is very timely as we had the opportunity to meet with Patsy and Susan last week, and Patsy does not need a name tag. Her passion exudes the room, and you could feel that in our meeting with her. So it's an enjoyable part of my job to see people with that much passion for what they do, and Susan and Patsy certainly do that. So for many years, Atlantic Summers Institute on Healthy and Safe Communities has offered an important forum to exchange experience and research about how to deliver care that helps the individual as well as society as a whole. Our system on PEI strives to deliver care that is representative of the full spectrum of our island community, and we work constantly to ensure that we are responsive to the needs of all residents of the island, regardless of their gender, age, ability, education, earnings, race, or faith. This is an ongoing process and will be a constant duty. The PEI we are in today is different in many ways from the province I grew up in. In a few years, this province will be far different from today's island. As you may have heard today, we've crested 180,000 people on Prince Edward Island. So again, major growth, especially since 2013. So it changes many things in our province. As a health system, we have a duty to respond to these changes, and meet diversity by being inclusive. The more health services we can provide that encourage and enable healthy development of islanders, the more proactive we will be, and islanders will have a better quality of life as a result. We recognize that it's important to build structures that support individuals in taking control of their health and well-being. That can mean support for active communities, information on wellness, and health promotion, and practical guidance on steps people can take to encourage others to seek out wellness opportunities in their communities. The best future for healthcare will come from collaboration and consultation. Government will always have a major role in operating our public health system, but we can gain strength and versatility by working with and listening to all of our partners in care and by being sensitive to the needs of all partners within this island community. Thank you again for inviting me, and I hope you enjoyed this important and informative event. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now I'd like to call on Mayor Philip Brown to bring greetings from the city of Charlottetown. Mayor Brown was first elected in 2018 and re-elected in 2022. Previously, he served 2 terms on Charlottetown City Council from 2001 to 2006. One of the highlights during his term as councilor was the development and construction of the Bell Alliance Center. Mayor Brown.
Get my mic in the right place. Merci beaucoup, Malcolm, and greetings, esteemed guests, including Minister McLean, Mary Crane, Patsy Beatty Huggin, everybody knows Patsy, and Ariane Orellana, and participants of the Atlantic Summer Institute on Healthy and Safe Communities. Je suis toujours inspiré par les actions comme les groupes de l'Institut Atlantique, l'Institut d'été d'Atlantique, et je suis très fier de représenter la ville de Charlottetown comme une conférence d'aujourd'hui. Et comme le thème, j'aime beaucoup le thème, l'espoir, inspiration de l'espoir par les actions communautaires. It is an honor to be here today as mayor of the city of Charlottetown and warmly welcome this important gathering focused on this critical issue facing our community, creating healthy and safe communities. And I can tell you personally through being the mayor of this great city that since the pandemic and post-pandemic, we've seen a lot of issues related to mental health, addiction services, access to detox, access to counseling, and the strains are pouring out into our streets. And you can see it through some of the facilities that exist in the city that have taken the big spotlight and has put it on our lack of compassion, our lack of action, and that's why j'aime beaucoup le thème cette année. I am delighted to see experts, advocates, and leaders come together in Charlottetown to exchange ideas, share experiences, and collectively work towards building healthier communities. In Charlottetown, we recognize that mental health well-being is a cornerstone of a thriving society. And again, this is reflected in this year's theme, Inspiring Hope Through Community Action. Over the years, our partners have been exemplary in undertaking community action. They've worked hard to foster an environment that promotes mental wellness, reduces stigma, and provides accessible resources for those who need them. These partners, including the provincial government, Health Prince Edward Island, CMHA, Peers Alliance, and more, are developing a comprehensive support network ensuring that individuals of all ages, of all socioeconomic backgrounds, have the tools to manage their mental health effectively. As I said, the past years have brought on a housing crisis, a global pandemic, and an unaffordability crisis. These issues have tested our resilience and adaptability, and highlighted the importance, the strong importance of mental health support systems as more people than ever have faced stress, isolation, and uncertainty. And it may be easy to think that challenges in our communities and workplaces are beyond our reach. But residents of our respective communities, we are all on the front line in the fight to make our communities safer, reducing the stigma, and working together to foster an environment that promotes mental wellness. And in a sense, change is within our reach. So I want to thank all the experts, the organizations, and individuals here today who are part of this fight to create a healthier and more compassionate world. And let us use this conference, Malcolm, to learn from each other's successes and challenges, forge new collaborations, and inspire a movement toward improving mental health. So I hope you all enjoy the conference, and please make the most of your time here in historic Charlottetown, the birthplace of a nation, and I really encourage those that are visiting from away. So I can't wait to see what comes out of these conversations. Merci beaucoup, bonne santé, restez en sécurité. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. I'd now like to call on Quentin Ng, who's the Manager of Customer Experience for the TD Bank here in Charlottetown. And the TD Bank has been a long-standing partner for the ASI Youth Program. Quentin.
Thank you, Malcolm, for the kind introduction. And thank you for inviting me here to say a few words today. It takes a lot of people to organize an event like this, and all the organizers and volunteers have, as usual, done a fantastic job bringing this together for the upcoming sessions. I would also like to recognize the other like-minded sponsors who have stepped forward, like TD, to provide funding and resources to make this event happen. Atlantic Summer Institute and TD share a long-standing history of enriching lives. For us at TD, it doesn't matter whether you are a customer, colleague, or one of our neighborhood communities. TD, like ASI, works to model a supportive environment for learning and well-being. At TD, we have shown our commitment to diversity, human rights, mental health, and financial education through years of community investment and employee volunteer hours. And we are leaders in pursuing a bold community agenda. I'm excited that some of these exact topics will be touched on and tackled over the next couple of days. We see this forum as a platform to gather ideas and build a work plan, so please be engaged, speak up, and listen to others. At TD, we've launched the Ready Commitment to help us with our plan. This new strategic direction is a multi-year global initiative to help open doors for a more inclusive and sustainable tomorrow. Our aspiration is to link our business, products and services, colleagues and community investments to have the greatest impact that we can. We are focusing our efforts in 4 key drivers of change: financial security, vibrant planet, connected communities, and better health. Each are interconnected, and when addressed, will help people feel more confident, not just about their finances, but in their future and their ability to achieve their personal goals in a changing world. We understand that change is a fact of life, that it can renew our perspective of the world or how we act within it. When we look around, we know that the world is changing at an increasingly rapid pace, undermining people's confidence in their ability to live well today and succeed in the future. Helping to create the conditions that everyone needs to succeed and fully participate in a changing world is a responsibility that we take to heart at TD. It is a bold and critical ambition that requires working with others in the private, public, and non-profit sectors. That is why TD is proud to support the 2023 ASI Forum, and in particular, the Youth Leadership Program. Together, we can make a difference and open doors to a more inclusive and sustainable tomorrow and make the world a better place. Thank you so much.
But we have been very fortunate to have support from the PEI Alliance for Mental Wellbeing for a project here in the island that is implementing the policy brief that Ariana mentioned earlier. And I'm very happy to introduce Mary Pendergast, who's the Vice Chair of the Board of Directors of the Alliance. Mary has been involved in her rural Kensington area North Shore community all her life and achieved many awards for her community work. Mary's career has primarily been as an educator, graduating with a Bachelor of Arts from St. Thomas University, an honors degree from the University of Guelph, and a master's degree in literacy education from Mount St. Vincent. Mary.
Thank you, Malcolm. I'm very pleased to be here. My name is Mary Pendergast. I'm a board member with the PEI Alliance for Mental Wellbeing. And the Alliance is very pleased to be participating in sponsorship of the Atlantic Summer Institute programs. And it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening and to bring greetings from the Alliance. We know how hard the Atlantic Summer Institute team members have been working on this year's forum and how exciting the next few days will be. It's a very impressive schedule, and looking forward to taking part in some of the workshops and sessions. It's going to be very, very interesting. In 2022, ASI received a 3-year grant from our organization. We are proud to support its efforts to increase cross-sector collaboration for the promotion of upstream mental well-being support and policies here on PEI. This year will be my first time attending the forum. In advance of the evening tonight, I spent some time thinking about the upcoming experience, and I found myself particularly moved by this year's theme of inspiring hope through community action. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who felt this way. I was thinking about the theme. I heard a CBC radio interview with an author who is researching and writing about hope, which was very timely. She described it as action, which is the opposite of despair. And with action comes hope. And the focus of the PEI Alliance for the Mental Wellbeing, as well as the ASI, is all about action. Whether it is climate change, educating children, safe communities, mental well-being, resilience, or any of the many overwhelming issues facing our world today, action brings hope for the future. This forum is such a meaningful opportunity to gather, learn from leaders in various communities, and celebrate work and people who are influencing upstream investment across the Atlantic provinces. But perhaps most importantly, it offers an intentional time to connect with others. So much of our hope is fueled by the way we connect and share, and hope really is key. We all know necessary change can take time and is rarely linear. It is hope that keeps pushing us toward a better reality. From my conversations with Alliance colleagues, other board members, those in the community, I am certain that those attending the forum this year will walk away with renewed energy, connectivity, and hope. I look forward to rich dialogue that will help us in our collective efforts to implement change at the community and policy levels in Atlantic Canada and beyond. And thank you for taking the time to be here. I wish you a wonderful evening and a wonderful few days ahead, the weeks, months, and years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Well, this is the Atlantic Summer Institute on Healthy and Safe Communities. We've heard from our supporters and dignitaries and officials here on the island because we are here. But we also have an elected member from New Brunswick, Marco LeBlanc, who's here this evening. And Marco, do you want to just stand up and say hi? Marco's involved in some of the work we've been doing in our, to bring people together in communities across the region to talk about these issues that we're discussing here today. So we're pleasure to have you with us. Okay, I think it's Ariane's turn, is it not? To introduce the Atlantic Community Showcase.
Okay, how are we doing? Woo! Yay! Awesome. So we are moving ahead to this next part, which is super exciting. So we are, as ASI, we're super thrilled to share this year's Atlantic Canadian Showcase with you. You've probably seen some of them outside. So what's going to happen next is over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be sharing 6 presentations from programs and organizations all across Atlantic Canada that are influencing and demonstrating the upstream policy for infant, child, and youth mental health promotion. Now, these 6 presenters are going to come up on stage after I've introduced them, and they're going to have about 2 to 3 minutes each to do a quick pitch to tell you a little bit about what these exhibitions are. And you're going to, that's not a lot of time, I know, but you're going to have enough time to go visit their exhibitions after our opening ceremony. And throughout the forum, over the next days that we're together, these initiatives will be on display right there in the Performance Hall's lobby. I mean, I think that's the Performance Hall lobby. Is it, Patsy? That's okay, perfect. So it's at the Performance Hall's lobby, and they're going to be also shown as under the exhibits tab on the Whova app. So if you're on that Whova app, go check them out. And I really do encourage you to all take the opportunity to go visit them, go learn and talk about these brilliant projects and initiatives, talk to these passionate leaders. I've had a chance to talk to some of them already myself. They're doing fantastic work in their communities, and we're so lucky to have them present here to show a little bit of that work to us. So really encourage you to go find the time. So these 6 presenters, you know who you are. So we're going to be starting with our first presenter. We're going to go with the Newfoundland Alliance for Perinatal Mental Health. And they are a group of like-minded, passionate individuals who have come together to help parents and families. They cross genders, gender identities, cultures, borders, institutions, and communities, all with one goal in mind: to provide better health care for your parents, children, and families. There's going to be a short video, and I'm going to ask the wonderful leader to come up, Dr. Archana Vidayasankar, to come up.
mental health, but it starts with infant mental health, and that starts in utero, and for some, even before conception. There are many misconceptions to treating mental health during pregnancy and postpartum, and we need to change this. Atlantic provinces have some of the highest rates of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. We need to change this. We have grown in the last few years to have our first board of directors advocating to government, which led to the first perinatal mental health task force from Newfoundland Labrador government. We have held events, engaged in social media, collaborated with researchers, and have set goals to improve perinatal mental well-being for all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. We know the need is there. We know there are great people working in the area. What we need is a cohesive strategy and a plan that sees the larger picture. Atlantic Canada has the opportunity to create change with the strength of their communities. Together we can narrow the gaps, reduce the silos, and come together. Perinatal is probably as upstream as you can get, and that is why we are so passionate about this ability to create change. So join us. I look forward to meeting all of you. We'll connect and improve mental health and well-being for Atlantic Canadians for now and for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Archana. BGC PEI, formerly Boys and Girls. This is about an amazing impact, learn about their amazing impact that they are having in their organization. Measuring, I'm gonna start over. Learn about the amazing impact they are measuring in young people as a national movement. This includes the astonishing self-reporter stats of 91% of kids are more active and confident, 92% work better with others, and 93% take more initiative. BCG has an immense amount of hope for our young people by connecting them with the club community and their core values of belonging: respect, encouragement, support, working together, and speaking out. So the passionate leader for this is Ted Blocky, and he's not able to be here in person, but that their exhibition is going to be available on the Whova app, so I encourage you to go and check it out. We have the third presenter, which is called SHIELD, the Sexual Education for Inuit Youth Labrador Friendship Center, SHIELD. Their project is geared towards Indigenous youth from ages 11 to 24, and the project uses art, culture, and technology events as a way to share information on sexual health, healthy relationships, and harm reduction with young people. Jade Rackwell is at the forum representing this project, and their team has prepared this video.
The Labrador Friendship Center's SHIELD project, what we do and why. SHIELD is an acronym for Sexual Health Information Exchange Labrador District. We're a multi-year project funded primarily by the Public Health Agency of Canada's HIV and Hepatitis C Community Action Fund. SHIELD is a project for Indigenous youth from ages 11 to 24. We carry out our work in the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Innu of Nitassinan, the Inuit of Nunatsiavut, and the Inuit. Use art, culture, and technology to create safer spaces for youth to learn about sexual health and STBBI prevention. Our project is informed and inspired by many years' work at the Labrador Friendship Center's HIV/AIDS project. This knowledge was brought together with learning from other Northern and Indigenous programs, including YouthCo in BC, Foxy in Nunavut, and Healing Our Nations in Nova Scotia. Through consultation with local youth, SHIELD's ACT philosophy was developed, intertwining sexual health education with art, culture, and technology activities. Our work is also guided by an advisory committee that reflects our demographic with positions for youth, people living with HIV, artists, and other key stakeholders. The ACT activities our project organizes create plentiful opportunities for intergenerational skill sharing and partnership with other youth servicing agencies. The events we offer change regularly as they reflect the needs and interests expressed by youth engaging with our project. Regularly hosting different activities means making a lot of connections. Sometimes youth are instructors, or often we bring in local artists to help facilitate. It's wonderful to see youth connect, share, and enjoy their time together, as well as the growing confidence in our volunteers and peer leads. In addition to our work in Central Labrador, working with partners in and traveling to the coast has always been part of SHIELD's work. So staff in Happy Valley Goose Bay were thrilled to receive funding for a SHIELD satellite site on the south coast of Labrador. However, a regional project with 2 staff is still a tiny team. Without project partners in multiple communities, our reach would be much more limited. We are incredibly thankful for organizations and individuals who see the importance of sexual health as a part of wellness overall and choose to partner with SHIELD as they respond to their community's needs. Partnering on events from a distance can look many different ways, but it always provides the benefit of connecting youth to the local supports that exist in their area. During project evaluation, youth shared their perspectives on SHIELD's impact through a series of interviews. In these interviews, youth describing an increase in confidence after getting involved with our project was a recurring theme. Interview participants noted how their involvement with the project helped them navigate through personal relationships. Conversations about consent and setting boundaries were also commonly reflected on, being topics that youth were glad to have covered. Our youth are really incredible, and it's so important to make sure they know they're valued, to allow them agency, opportunity, and support to learn, grow, and share. From SHIELD, we just have to say that it's a wonderful thing to make sure youth have lots of options to connect with their culture, to build their confidence, and prioritize their wellness. Nakamik.
Started in 2018 in response. Hi there, my name is Ed Howell. I'm a case manager with Homestead NL. The Homestead program was started in 2018 in response to identified gaps in services, currently at the time being offered in St. John's metro area. At its inception, the focus was originally on complex case management and supportive living, following the philosophies of housing first and harm reduction, as well as valuing lived experiences of participants and team members. The organization developed and was very successful in achieving long-term sustainable housing for individuals it was supporting. Since then, the organization has grown from the original 2-member team to its current 5. Due to a shift in identified gaps in services, Homestead has pivoted from its original form to a rapid rehousing model in Metro, St. John's, and has built and continues to build a strong partner-based collaborative relationship and network across the province to help serve rural communities, recognizing that they are the experts in their communities and that a whole of society approach is very effective. In both our metro and rural programs, a key component of our service is our service prioritization tool, which focuses on 3 key areas. The first being barrier addressing, the second, housing addressing, and third, housing retention. We believe that upstream aftercare is an essential part of ensuring long-term, successful, stable housing. To this end, we continue to engage with and follow all of our participants for 3 months after they are housed and collaborate with community partners to ensure stability long-term. This helps to ensure that any issues that may arise will be addressed in a speedy timeframe.
Following these philosophies, we've been able to successfully work with participants to help them find their housing of choice through working with community partners, have been able to help multiple chronically homeless individuals maintain their current housing long term. We believe that by focusing on housing and doing it well, while availing of collaborating with other community partners who have strength in other areas, it creates a whole of society approach and creates wraparound services for individuals wherever they may be on their current life journey. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you, and I hope to see you at the showcase times. Remember, I have pens.
The financial burden of post-secondary education, promoting social mobility, and enhancing employability prospects. And we have Kristen Anderson here in person to share more about this program.
Hello. Oh, come on. Hello. There we go. There we go. My name is Kristen. I'm one of the many professionals, students, social workers, advocates, community members that are working together to increase access to tuition waivers across Atlantic Canada. Next slide, please. Beginning with the success that we saw in University of Victoria and the impacts on social location, Mount St. Vincent was the first university to implement a tuition waiver program for former children and youth in care. Next slide, and you can just keep doing these next 6 slides very quickly. And that was followed by Memorial University in Newfoundland. And then from there, our lovely host, Holland College, also started a tuition waiver program, followed by New Brunswick Community College, Dal, King's, St. Mary's University, and then CBU with our highest number of spots, which is 20 spots for former children and youth in care. Yes, that deserves a big one. Then in addition to that, St. Francis Xavier joined on board, as well as University to St. Anne. And to date, we have about 60 plus spots for individuals that are coming out of the care system at any age. There's no restriction on age. They could be out of care for years and come back and decide, I would like to study, I would like to learn, and I would like to improve my social location and that of my children if they are parents. And then in addition, when we add up all of the spaces across Atlantic Canada, we're looking at 80, almost 90. Next slide, please. So what are we doing? What's our small group doing? We are a SSHRC-funded partnership development grant, which means we want more people to join us. We want more people to ask their universities, why aren't you offering this? We're not asking for numerous spaces. We're asking for a small number to increase access to education for former children and youth who really struggled through the educational system. Next slide, please. So our main questions are this. Do they work? Do tuition waiver programs work? And how do they impact the lives of students who are participating in them? We've done a bit of this work through a grant that was funded through Research Nova Scotia, where we got the firsthand experiences of individuals who were receiving waivers. Our second question is really in-depth interviews to be able to understand what are the barriers and what facilitate to allow individuals who are coming from the care system to experience that success. Third, how tuition waiver programs advance gender-based analysis and equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility policies among the participating post-secondary institutions. We know that individuals across a variety of gender, sexual orientation, diversity, all experience barriers to be able to access post-secondary education. And then fourth, what factors support former youth in care to pursue and complete a post-secondary education? Next slide, please. So with that, and with the QR code that you'll see on the poster and in the Whova app, what a cool word, Whova, we get these policy briefs that we're putting out that really understand the economic impacts of offering these waivers, the social impacts, the intergenerational impacts, and just the well-rounded understanding of a small initiative like this has in the lives of some of our children, youth, and families who need it most. You'll find all of these on our website that's in that QR code. And so next slide, most importantly, and I love seeing all the youth here, how can you get involved? This is a partnership development grant. We want you, right? So if you're interested in joining some of this work, having conversations about this work, please send our research manager an email. In addition to that, if your school is not listed, most important part, call them and ask them why. Why aren't you participating in this? We've got multiple institutions that are doing this and doing this very successfully. And then third, if you could give a little love to our Instagram account and our, I still want to say Twitter because it'll always be Twitter to me. I think it's a weird X now or something. Anyways, the calls are there. I look forward to connecting with each and every one of you at the booth or stop me through the conference so we can talk more about this. Thanks so very much.
Thank you so much, Kristen. And the last but not least of our presentations, and I'm going to switch in French. La prochaine présentation voudra vous faire découvrir un organisme communautaire francophone du Nouveau-Brunswick qui ouvre à s'aimer l'espoir d'un bonheur communautaire possible. Le mouvement acadien des communautés en santé du Nouveau-Brunswick s'appuie sur une approche gagnante, celle des communautés et des écoles en santé pour placer les citoyennes et la citoyenne au cœur de toutes ces interventions. Riche de son bassin de 169 membres, le mouvement acadien des communautés en santé du Nouveau-Brunswick travaille à renforcer les capacités et les pouvoirs d'agir des communautés sur les déterminants de leur santé. Je vais inviter à Léopold Pinault pour venir nous parler un peu plus de ça.
Merci, Ariane. Ici débute votre session de renforcement du français. En tant que membre du conseil d'administration du mouvement acadien de communauté en santé, il me fait plaisir au nom de sa présidente Michelle Ouellette et de sa directrice générale Barbara Lausier de vous présenter l'organisation. Le mouvement acadien de communauté en santé Nouveau-Brunswick, pour nous, l'acronyme, c'est le MAC, MAC-NB. C'est un organisme communautaire francophone et provincial qui agit comme réseau de mobilisation et d'accompagnement des communautés et populations locales de l'Acadie du Nouveau-Brunswick dans la prise en charge de leur mieux-être. Pour ce faire, il fait la promotion du modèle communauté école en santé. L'approche communauté école en santé, c'est une stratégie gagnante pour agir en amont sur les déterminants de la santé avec le citoyen et la citoyenne au cœur de toute action. Notre raison d'être, vraiment, c'est de renforcer la capacité des individus, des personnes, à pouvoir influencer les décideurs. Donc, pour ça, on ajoute des outils qui viennent aider les citoyens, les personnes, jeunes, moins jeunes, et les organisations. Quand on parle de l'atteinte de bonheur municipal brut chez nous, c'est une définition qui est un peu abstraite. C'est comment chaque citoyen est en mesure de trouver sa place, de prendre sa place, toute sa place. Donc, l'approche communauté école en santé, elle vise à amener les décideurs locaux ou scolaires, la population, ses citoyens, citoyennes, ses élèves, les acteurs du milieu, que ce soit les enseignants, parents, bénévoles, à travailler ensemble pour améliorer la qualité de vie dans leur communauté ou leur école. École en santé, c'est une stratégie positive avec un souci d'améliorer et de maintenir la santé des jeunes, parler en termes de qualité de vie et de mieux-être, mise sur les forces, les atouts et les bons coups, créer des liens entre l'école et sa communauté, s'assure que le jeune soit au cœur de l'action. Le MAC, sa force, c'est 169 membres, dont 45 communautés et organisations en santé, c'est 91 écoles en santé. Pratiquement toutes les écoles francophones du Nouveau-Brunswick sont associées à Écoles en santé. C'est également 33 membres associés et amis. C'est une connexion avec près de 200 groupes, acteurs et partenaires en lien avec la santé et le mieux-être en français au Nouveau-Brunswick et au Canada. Et on atteint par le membership, nos partenaires, jusqu'à 150 000 personnes lorsqu'on intervient, lorsqu'on partage les connaissances et les outils. Enfin, mon dernier mot, c'est sur la suivante. Le MAC s'est assuré de créer des partenariats, collaborations avec un ensemble d'intervenants du Nouveau-Brunswick et ailleurs. Donc, si on va à la cétate suivante, vous allez voir une série d'organismes comme santé mentale. La santé mentale est indissociable de l'approche communauté école en santé. Et en quelque part, et je termine là-dessus, c'est qu'on cherche toujours à renforcer cette capacité, mais surtout de renforcer cette confiance, cet espoir chez nos jeunes, chez les personnes de notre province, à réaliser qu'ils ont une capacité d'influencer, une capacité par leur vécu, leur bagage, de pouvoir renforcer les données et les connaissances pour les décideurs afin que les meilleures décisions possibles soient prises. Et nous avons également pour nous le fameux proverbe africain qui dit « Seul on va plus vite, mais ensemble on va plus loin ». Et c'est un peu ce qu'on tente de faire au Mouvement acadien de communauté en santé. Merci.
Et je viens d'apprendre que M. Pinet a récemment reçu l'Ordre du Canada pour son implication communautaire. Félicitations. I just learned that Mr. Pinet just got the award of the Order of Canada because of his community implication. So, congratulations. Wonderful. Well, those are the 6 exhibitions that we have. Thank you so much for all your work putting this together, your work, and for all the presentations. And thank you to Chantal and Wendy for sharing, putting all the videos with us. And please, once again, go and check the exhibitions. I think we already went through them. Formerly Boys and Girls Club, yeah? We covered them, right? The audience got me. So thank you so much, and connect in person if they're here, or send them a huva them. We should do that verb. Anyway, thank you. Back to Malcolm.
A sampling of the amazing work that's going on across the Atlantic region, working upstream in various ways, from perinatal to youth and care, to support mental health for infants, children, and youth. So I'm sure you'll enjoy the conversations. You'll have opportunities after the keynote conversation this evening to look around in the exhibits and well, there are also exhibits, but to talk with people further about it. There are also exhibits in the hall out there, several of them that you're going to want to see. I want to just point out, one of them is an ASI exhibit called Mental Health and All Policies, which is about what we learned through the Public Health Agency grant that we've just concluded. We learned things about how to transmit knowledge and help people to take knowledge and mobilize it in their communities, and there are tools that we developed to do that. You can see them at the exhibit. And we learned a lot from the community workshops that we had across the region. And so Linda Liebenberg, who's somewhere here, will be there on our behalf, there she is, to talk with you and answer your questions. So, I think it's time for our keynote conversation, is it not? Right, so I'm on script here. So this evening, we are continuing to innovate in how we communicate and how we present important information as a kickoff to our event. And tonight it's going to be a keynote conversation between Dr. Brenda Rastool and Tyler Simmons. And they will explore the theme, Inspiring Hope Through Community Action, from their two perspectives. Brenda is an Indigenous leader from Dokas First Nation, Ojibwe, and from the Eagle Clan. And she'll be joining us remotely from Sudbury, I think. Is that where she is? Somewhere up there. And Tyler is a filmmaker who grew up in North Preston, Nova Scotia, which is the largest Black community in Nova Scotia by population. Their full bios are in the program, and I encourage you to read. There's much more to be said about them, and you can read them in their bios. So I'm going to call on Tyler now to come up, and he's going to be joined remotely by Brenda, and the two of them are going to have a conversation. Now Patsy and I and Tyler and Brenda had a conversation in preparation for this evening, and we spent about an hour talking about the theme of inspiring hope through community action, and they both had their own interesting things to say from their different experiences with a lot of common ground amongst them. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that tonight. So Tyler, welcome.
Thank you.
Over to you. There's a mic.
Hey everyone. Some faces in here of people that I've talked to already, and yeah, it's been a great time so far. I'm so happy to be here. I'm also so happy to be joined by Brenda. It's very important to talk about mental health and community, and I'll just share a bit about myself. Coming from North Preston, it's not really a place where we would talk about mental health. It surely did not. Oh, Brenda, hey. It surely isn't something that didn't exist before me. That was tough. Growing up, I had a very loving family. My parents were great. My cousins, my older brothers, as annoying as they can be sometimes, they were amazing. And I didn't really understand what was going on with me. It was a lot of sadness, deep sadness, and a lot of anxiety, social anxiety, if you can believe. And growing up, there were a lot of things that I learned in my community. North Preston is a very unique place. We have our own culture, our way of being, and as much as it taught me such empowering things and such beautiful things, it was also the same place where I heard things like, oh, we can't put our community on the resume because we won't get the job. Things like, oh, if you go into a store, make sure your hands are out of your pocket because you know what they're going to think. And these things really, I really thought deep and hard about these things. Like, why is that? And then I start learning about my past, the history of my community, and learning that I come from places where it would be impossible for us to not have intergenerational trauma. So having my parents tell me these things is, I can't be upset with them. I can't be mad at them. They were taught these things. And I come from North Preston, but I also have a mom who's from Africville. So it's Africville and Preston. And that's a very strong combination. And I didn't know that until I got into my late 20s, which is also another thing. I felt like I should have known that growing up. But the reason why I speak about my mental health is because of learning about my people and learning about Africville, learning about Preston, and learning about the amazing people who wanted to make change, and they did it. They acted on it. I never heard anyone talk about depression growing up. I never heard anyone talk about anxiety growing up. And as anxious and depressed as I was, I remember thinking, I need to be the one who speaks about it, as hard as it's gonna be. And it can be really hard sometimes, really hard. But it's worth it. All of the amazing people that I've met doing these talks, ASI, the amazing people at ASI, I've learned that I come from a unique place, a place that's very unique. But there are things that we all have in common. In finding those things, I think, is the important part in making change in this world. So I hope that all of you feel the same way, and that you also want to make change with me, because I can't do this by myself. It's exhausting sometimes. But thank you. And now I will turn it over to Brenda, and then we will have a conversation. Thank you.
So Brenda, we're just going to do a mic check. Not sure if you can hear me. That was lots of feedback on my end. Keep testing. Test. Test. Can you hear me? Test. 1, 2, 3. Hello. We are good. Fantastic. Good evening. Ani Bojo, Wapsakwestijnakas, Magizi Dodem, Kikanda Donjaba, Nishnabe Andao, Debendigo Saking. Thank you for having me join you virtually this evening. My apologies for not being able to be there in person. Too much travel and not enough time to get to a number of places is my main excuse for tonight. Just wanted to thank Tyler for being the person in the room and who will react to me and to all of those in front of you that I can only see the back of the heads that I can see right now. Tyler, you know I've got a presentation, but I really prefer that we just have a conversation, and I probably might pick off some of my comments on my slides, and happy for people to look at my slides on their own. And I think I just want to pick up on where you were talking about what we learn when it comes to talking about mental health. And just want to acknowledge that similar types of challenges occur, I think, in our communities. And so I think language is a really important piece, as well as experience. And from an experience point of view, we know that First Nations and other Indigenous communities have been negatively impacted by colonialism, and places like residential school had significant messages about not talking and not disclosing what was happening to young children in the residential school and in the day school experience. And as a result of that, those messages came back into our communities. We have language holders and our elders in our community who share that that behavior was not a common behavior prior to the residential school experience, but something that came back into the communities and became a very common way of behaving and a very common way of attending or addressing issues, which was to, you know, say nothing, see nothing, hear nothing, that kind of an experience. And I think as a result of that, it perpetuated the difficulties that we see, whether that be intergenerational trauma or consequences from intergenerational trauma, depression, anxiety, and other challenges. And I think it also perpetuated ongoing violence in our communities, sexual violence, physical violence, family violence, emotional and psychological violence, I think have been ongoing challenges in the community. One of the things for our communities that our elders talk about is by returning to our original languages, so whether it be Mi'kmaq that we see in the East, or the Wolastoq languages, or the languages of my people, the Anishinaabe languages, the Anishinaabemowin and Haudenosaunee, wherever they might be, a lot of the messaging we have right now is that by returning to our original languages, we learn not only about ourselves in terms of our identity, it also helps situate us. It situates us to our territory, our place, and it also situates us to our role. And in our language is a very descriptive language. And so often we don't have like single words for like depression or things like that. Rather, we have descriptors to talk about what we're referring to. So we have in the language, so I said, the Bendigo-sa King, which means I am of the land, you know, so I'm talking about sort of situating myself. Or when I say things like Bojo, it's like a greeting, it's like a larger welcoming. So it's not just a hello, it's like greetings, I'm connecting with you. So often a lot of our language comes from that way. So in traditional times, we certainly struggled. We struggled with stress, we struggled with difficulties, but it didn't mean that we didn't have words to describe that. And that was often words like, and I'm not a language speaker, so I'm not going to pretend to be able to say the words, but you know, those words in English were the one who worries, or the one who is always preparing and always looking forward. So it can be seen as both a strengths base, but also a recognition that people who are always planning and looking forward comes from a strengths-based approach, but is also a recognition that people are always planning and looking forward may need some help to be situated in the present. You know, so I think I really appreciated that comment you had about language, because our languages, I think for us as Indigenous and First Nations people, is something that not only are we reclaiming, but it helps us to think and situate how we look at a worldview of things. And so from our community perspective, it comes from strength, and it comes from connection, and it comes from relations. So maybe I'll just pause there and see what you think about that.
It's so nice to hear from you, and I feel that even just looking over the presentation, it was so interesting just to see like the ways of healing and really just how to, like in my community, there wasn't, growing up, we didn't really have much to go towards if somebody was feeling unwell. We didn't feel like we had this place where we could feel safe if we were feeling mentally unwell. And a big thing that I noticed is that in the Indigenous community, that you really emphasize healing and healing with community. And I know for myself, that was something that I always wanted. It was a lot of, oh, you just need to go to church for me. And I remember thinking, I don't really think that's what it is that I need. So really, in even reading your that presentation and going through the different things that you were writing about, I was thinking, oh, I wish I had something like this growing up. And because growing up as a black man in Nova Scotia, and in Preston specifically, I learned about the history of, when it comes to faith, I learned about the people who put that church in my community. So I was sort of, when I learned that, I'm like, oh, I kind of don't really want to go. And yeah, I'm just very interested in hearing more about your experience. And I've always really been interested in the experience of the Indigenous community and how they use faith in the spirit to help heal.
Thanks for that. I do appreciate the opportunity to talk more, and I'm just trying to be thoughtful that I don't take up all the space. So I'm going to thank you for the invitation. Yeah, I think there's been a real change, I would say, in the last decade, maybe even close to 2 decades, where we are seeing a resurgence in our community about reclamation of language, reclamation of culture, and reclamation of our own Indigenous knowledge as being not only being valid, but having evidence of the ability to heal, and that we have evidence about living a good life. And so often in our communities, there's no word for good mental health. It's actually Minopamadzwin in Mishnah-Bemowin, or Ojibwe, means living a good life. And so living a good life is an acknowledgement that it's a journey, that it's not sort of a state, so much as it's about being able to live on a journey and to find balance. Many of the people in the audience, I'm sure, are very familiar with the medicine wheel and the medicine wheel teachings. And for us, there has always been a strong recognition that attending to mental health using mainstream or Western types of strategies has always had something missing, and that's usually in the form of spirit. And the interesting thing is there was a research project that was facilitated in about 2013, 2014, and they went around the country and they asked, it was called Culture as Strength, and they went around the country, an elder went from territory to territory And they asked the question of how do they know culture works? And in that conversation, they began by talking about some of our original instructions. And our first original instruction is the instruction of our creation story. And so he's actually an elder from my territory, and he gave the creation story of the Anishinaabe people. But he went, out to the West Coast, and he shared his creation story and asked that they share theirs. He did that in Alberta with the Blackfoot people, went through Saskatchewan and Manitoba and spoke with Dene and the Cree, and made his way all the way to the East Coast, the Mi'kmaq and the Willistok people. And in each of those places, they shared their creation story. And one of the things they acknowledged was that we all have a creation story, and nobody's creation story is the right story. We all have our own right story based on our place in our space and what we understand about where we live and where we come from. And in that, they looked at what were some common themes and some commonalities. And what came from that was something that they called the Indigenous Wellness Framework. And within the Indigenous Wellness Framework, they looked at what are some things that bring about well-being or mental wellness or wellness. And here they found that, spiritual well-being brings about hope. So I think it's really great that we're talking today about inspiring change, because it means that when we are looking to create hope in people, we have to connect with them at a spiritual level. We have to connect with their spirit and, really the root of who they are and where they come from and their sense of identity. So we have to understand about their identity, their beliefs, and their values. So instilling hope means that we have to support people to connect with who they are, and where they come from in that sense. But more importantly, what they believe, what are their common values and their beliefs that support their sense of well-being or living a good life, or Manoba Madswin. The other ones, when we talk about understanding well-being, understanding that the other factors were belonging, which supports emotional well-being, having people have a sense of meaning gives people a sense of mental wellness, and people who have a sense of purpose have physical wellness. And so that came from this research project and all of the conversations that they had. And in each of those, and I don't want to take all the time talking about them because we're here to talk about hope, but under belonging, meaning, and purpose, there are certain things that we need to invest in and support, because that can build or support emotional well-being, mental and physical well-being as well. And as a result of that, we've been able, one of the main supporters of the research project has developed an assessment tool on that. And they've used that assessment tool to assess how engaging in cultural practices, utilizing language, reconnecting with identity, reconnecting with cultural knowledge, how does that support and build growth in hope, belonging, meaning, and purpose? And they have found, for example, that people who participate in land-based activities, so getting back on the land, reconnecting with who we are, understanding some of our other original instructions, has increased people's sense of hope, belonging, meaning, and purpose. And I think that's a really neat, it gives hope, right? It gives hope that that when we connect, when we situate ourselves in spirit and in relational practices, we begin to build on that sense of well-being. And I think the fact that we're talking about community action, I just would like to acknowledge that for Indigenous people, we are part of something greater than ourselves. We're part of a family, we're part of a community, but we're part of creation. And so being on the land situates us in part of that creation. I listened to a medicine person, and he was giving some really neat teachings. And this was the one that really sunk for me. It really made me go, wow, that really tells me where I belong in creation. He was talking about this certain medicine, and he talked about sort of the purpose of the medicine, what it looked like, where you find it, when you pick it or harvest it, how do you harvest it, and how do you prepare it for use in addressing some health issues, mental health issues particularly. And what he said was, this plant relies on us. If we don't go pick it, it will die away and it will no longer be available to us. So it's really important that we also pick it because it has a purpose here, just like we have a purpose. And that really made me think about, lots of comments that our elders make around wherever we find ourselves, wherever our territory is, there are medicines in our territory, and they are there because they are intended to help us in that territory. We will encounter certain things, and those medicines support us to attend to, whether it's nourishment, but also in terms of health and illness. We're more susceptible to, certain, let's say here where I come from, lots of like bee stings and mosquito bites and, poison ivy, poison oak. There are medicines that help us to address those types of challenges and illnesses, if you will. Being in a cold place, there are certain things that also, help us to deal with frostbite. So I think recognizing that when we are part of creation, it means that we need to be relational at all times. And I think one of the biggest things for me about attending to whether it be mental wellness or promoting mental wellness, first and foremost, always has come like being in relation. I think about, as psychologists, we are told the most important part of your practice is having a good rapport and relationship with your clients, because that will make the biggest difference in recovery. So I think it's the same to recognize that we don't spend enough time recognizing the importance of being relational. And it's not just relational with other people, but it's relational with ourselves, and then relational with our land and all of the beings of creation. So relational with the medicines, with the plant life, with the animal life, with the water life, with the sky. All those things play a purpose in our well-being.
Thank you. I love that. That's so important. And I think about how we're all connected, and how even just the nature, we're so connected with nature. And even with my journey, getting help with my depression and my anxiety, it was always the times when it really helped. It was always the people that just showed they really cared. It wasn't somebody reading a specific thing out of a book, or somebody telling me to take a specific medication or anything like that. They were the very first time that I felt like I was heard. It was a woman at the Community Mental Health Center in Dartmouth, and she wasn't from my community. She didn't look like most of the women that I was around my whole life. And she just came up to me and she said, "Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Yeah, of course you can." Deep inside, I'm thinking, thank God I need one. And she gave me a hug, and we sat down and we had a conversation. We talked about the things that I want out of life. She said, "Tyler, what are the things that you really want? Like, don't think about the limits. Don't let the fear get in the way. Just what do you really want?" And I said, "I want to be a filmmaker. I want to write a book. I want to do a TED Talk. I just kept going on. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, these aren't things that I'm actually going to achieve. But she said, "Okay, you're going to do those." And she really meant that. And she sat across from me, she pulled out a piece of paper, and she said, okay, how are we going to do these things? And I'm thinking, wow, you really believe that I can do these things. I remember having a doctor saying, yeah, you shouldn't, I don't think you should think about doing public speaking to help people know that they're not alone, basically, because you have social anxiety. And of course, I did the opposite. And but hearing this woman that I didn't know, didn't come from my background, totally different, telling me that I can do these things and that she believed in me. And she really meant it, because I have a pretty good BS meter, and she really meant it. I remember going home and thinking, I was so excited. I was like, I really can do these things. And that's all that I needed. And that also put something in me to know, like, I can be that for somebody else. And even with the filmmaking that I do now, like I do documentary film, and there are people that I speak to for my new film who they've been through a lot, and they feel that there are certain things that they can't do because they've made mistakes in the past. And I just want to be that person who's like, I believe in you. You can do it. Like, and just to see the look on their eyes when I tell them that, it's the most beautiful feeling that I've ever felt. And that's really why I even do this work. It's like, it's being there for the community. This is hope. I think that's real hope. That's really like showing people who they can be. Like, that's real hope. And yeah, I'm sorry, I probably went on a bit of a tangent, but I think that was, and it was from the heart, so thank you.
I don't think you went on a tangent at all. You made me think about a land-based activity that happens in this territory, in the Robinson-Huron Treaty in Ontario. One of our communities has been hosting for several years now a canoe journey, and the canoe journey started out for at-risk youth, and they start at one end of their own First Nation, so their territory, and they canoe for 10 days through the Georgian Bay all the way into the bay where their community is of Wickwamacong. And they talked to me about that experience. And one of the things that I really love about the story, there's lots of pieces, but when they started this, they had identified these at-risk youth. You know, there was probably more than half of them who weren't happy, but had to go on this canoe journey, and off they went. And they said every day, you know, they canoed so far, and then they would stop, they would break, they would find a place to set up camp. They'd have to set up camp, they'd cook, and then they'd have an elder come, and the elder or somebody from the community would come and share community stories about their origin. They would give sacred teachings, and the young people had to write sort of reflections about their day. And they said that when they were done after the 10 days, they took those reflections and they evaluated them to see. And what they found in the words, but also in their behavior, is by day 3, all of those kids who didn't want to be there, there was this shift. They could see this shift in terms of who they believe themselves to be, because in those first 3 days, it was the responsibility of those adult chaperones, of those elders who came to visit, who were telling the stories. It was their responsibility to instill hope in them and to give them a sense of belief. and to point out that they had purpose, by canoeing, they had a purpose within their team to make sure that they all got to the destination that they got to. And it gave them a sense of meaning that they were doing something valuable and important. And all of a sudden it started to connect with, values about being in relationships, values about teamwork, values about resiliency. And a big piece of it was helping these young people recognize their own strengths, because many of these at-risk youth didn't see that they had strengths, didn't see that they had possibility. And it made a huge difference. And they tell like fabulous stories of, after day 3, these young people would be canoeing and they would encounter challenges. Georgian Bay can be a very rough body of water, and they would hit storms, and you'd see a young person like getting tired, giving up, getting frustrated, and you'd see this other canoe of young people come either drop back to wait for them or catch up to them and cheer them on and say, you can do it, it's in you, and make all these really positive affirmations to them that made a huge difference for them. And the thing that happens at the end is sort of like as they come in, they have to round sort of like this piece in the land and then come into a bay. And as they're coming up to that piece before they make it round, they could hear our drums. And so the drums are calling them home, right? And it's the sound of Mother Earth, like of our heartbeat, of our mother heartbeat that we hear when we're in the womb. And so it's calling them home, telling them this is the place to come to, this is their home, this is where they belong. So it's giving them a sense of belonging. And then they could hear cheering once they round that corner, and standing on the shoreline are their families, their extended families, the leadership, people, service providers in the community, cheering and calling them home and welcoming them home. So at the end of it, they feel this huge sense of not only did they accomplish something, but it was meaningful, not just for them personally, but all of the people that they were on this canoe trip with, but also to their community, who saw it as that they were able to overcome barriers and challenges, and that they had strengths and that they believed in them. And they did some, they assessed them with some different tools, and they found that the resiliency score of these young people went up significantly. So when we instill hope in people, we instill resiliency when we sort of recognize and pay attention to their strengths. And so we build resiliency in them. And that resiliency will stay high for 6 months. If you never talk to them again, if they never do anything again, for 6 months, it'll stay high. So it's our job to continue to boost people and ensure that that resiliency remains high by focusing on strengths. I think the challenges we have, whether it be the mental health system and how it's sort of organized, or maybe worldviews, those deficit-based ways of attending to illness, attending to challenge, don't build resiliency. That story you tell about, don't ever talk in front of anybody because you have a social anxiety, doesn't build your resiliency. In fact, it breaks it down, it deteriorates it, right? So we want to be able to build on strengths, and we want to find those opportunities. And so I really appreciated your story about what that woman did by sitting and listening to is, she focused on your strengths, and she had a belief in you, and a belief in the values you had that would get you to all those things you wanted to be able to do. And community is sometimes one other person. It doesn't have to be a large group, but community is about feeling like you belong with somebody, and that somebody has a shared value system as you, and a shared worldview, and I think it then nurtures that sense of identity we have about ourselves.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you so much. I think now we'll go over to questions. Yeah, so does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask myself or Brenda about anything? I'm an open book. You can ask me whatever you like. Yep. The question was, what was the big takeaway that we had from our previous conversation? Would you like to touch on that?
So we had a few, I guess. One of the ones that we talked about was, and I think it alludes to it in the description. We talked about how there are a number of different laws. So the United Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People is one. Another one was the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, the Covenant on the Rights of Children. We talked about those ones as being put in place to support people to to be equitable, that everybody has access to the same services and resources, which we know isn't true, particularly in marginalized populations. It hasn't been the case for Indigenous people, Black people, and other people of color, that often we do not have the same access, even though we have these these global laws and expectations. And so we talked about how even though these laws are there, we still have a personal responsibility to ensure that we are forever seeking equity and demanding equity. And we all have a responsibility, I think, towards that equity. One of my slides talks about, in our teachings, we have a belief about the 7 generations, that we have a responsibility to the 7 generations ahead of us, and that the 7 generations behind us had a responsibility to us. So we always need to almost like pay it forward, and that we always have to pave the way for something better. And, I think about how fortunate I am as an Indigenous person, that it wasn't UNDRIP that allowed me to be able to sit here and talk to you about my culture today. It was those little children from the residential school experience who did not allow what happened to them to be hidden, who insisted that what happened to them had to be told, that those stories had to be told. It was about those children who muffled into their pillows their traditional languages. It was about those children who would sing in their language when nobody was listening, or even if bad things happened to them, they would continue to do that, to have language. It was those our ancestors who hid in the bush so Indian agents couldn't see them when they practice some of our cultural practices. It was those grandmas and those aunties who continued to show their children how to bead, how to harvest, all of those kinds of things, I think are really critical pieces that are important to understand. And so I think that was one of the things for me, was an acknowledgement really that, the 7 generations is one of our original teachings that tell us we need to make things better for the generations coming after us, whether that be culture, identity, language, but even in our day now, sometimes it's about ensuring access to resources in ways we didn't have before. So I think all of those make a big difference. That was the one thing I think that was a takeaway for me. What about you, Tyler?
I would say for me, a lot of the similarities between the Black community and the Indigenous community, and I would also hear things from my grandparents about how they would interact with the Indigenous community and how beautiful of a relationship it was in Preston area. And it really, it just really makes me think about the amount of things that we can accomplish together. And by together, I really mean all of us, all ethnicities, all genders,
And just how important that is. As I grow up and get older, I realize all of the things that I have been taught as also as just a man, which we can learn a lot of harmful things growing up, just through the media, through just society telling us that we're supposed to be a certain way and things, and but we can come together, we can meet each other where we are, and we can create change that way. And I think that's the most important thing that I get from even this conversation, even this event, is that no matter where we're from, no matter what you're into, we can all learn to coexist together and move forward, progress in a healthy and loving way. And just to end that, during COVID, such a tough time for all of us, and all of the things that were going on in the world, it was a lot of anger, and I felt a lot of anger because of the things that I would see in the news and stuff like that. And the one thing that I learned out of that time was that the anger is not going to push us forward. What we need to do is take that anger, know that it's okay to feel it, but we need to turn that into something productive. And that's what I'm trying to do now. And I feel that all of the amazing people that I met here are trying to do the same. And I think that if we keep doing that, then the future looks bright, for sure. Yeah. Thank you. Do we want to take another question? Oh. Yeah, I don't know how to do it.
I think we've achieved a natural point of closure here with the last words we've heard.
I feel like we have, yeah.
Any final words, Brenda?
I guess, part of community action means recognizing that we all have a right to health. And I think that's an important point to make. We all have a right to good health and well-being, and that it's through community action that we can move that forward. And community action can be one person who starts something, similar to what Tyler did, by sharing a story and then creating films for other people to share their stories. It happens in many places, and it can have global repercussions sometimes. For me, the one person I think about who has made sort of a global impact is Grandma Josephine Mandamin, who was a water carrier and talked about the importance of water and the health of the water to being an indication about the health of Mother Earth and the health of us as her children. And she, all by herself, after listening to a teaching, said, I need to take action. And I think that's an important piece, is when we hear something that spawns us on to take action, that we need to be brave and take that action. And she took that action, and she walked around all 7 of the Great Lakes. And After the first one, all of a sudden people started to talk about her, and by the seventh one, everybody around the world was talking about her, and people were walking around water all over the place to bring attention to the need for clean, safe water for everyone. So I think taking action is a big part of community action. It means starting with ourselves and being brave that even if somebody else doesn't believe what we believe in, there will be somebody like that woman who sat with Tyler that day and said, you can do that. I know it will happen. So thank you. Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Brenda.
Do you have any last words, Tyler?
I just want to say thank you for listening to my heart, because that's really what I like to do when I do these talks. I'm not the most perfect speaker. I just know how to dig into my soul and try to let it speak. So thank you.
Wow, that was an amazing conversation. I feel so privileged to have been here to listen to it and to be inspired by what both of you have had to say. And as an expression of our appreciation, ASI is going to give to each of you a limited edition print of what you see here on this poster, which is originally painted by Maurice Bernard, an artist on the island, back in '06 or something like that. And we've had a limited edition set of prints made up, signed prints that we put in a nice frame. And so we're going to mail that to you, Brenda. We're going to get one to you too, Tyler, mail or otherwise, maybe the bus. As an expression of our appreciation for your sharing your stories and your insights and helping us to feel inspired to tackle the things that we care about and do it together in relation with each other with bravery. So, thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Tyler. I wish you could be here to join us for what happens next. We'll think about you. We'll probably be talking about what we heard this evening over the next 2 or 3 days. And that's really the sign of a good keynote. So you'll be in our hearts and minds over the next 2 or 3 days as we talk amongst ourselves and share our ideas and our stories.
I wish you all a great conference.
We're going to close the evening program. And we're going to invite you to the reception that's being held out here in the hallway, in the lobby, and to engage in conversation with the showcases and the exhibits that are out there, and to enjoy the music of a jazz combo that's going to be playing. Jordan Taylor on guitar, Aiden Salvati on sax. Did I say sex? I meant to say sax. Freudian slip. And Patrick Neighbors on bass, and Matt Bridges on drums. So that concludes our evening, and look forward to talking to you individually. And okay.
Recording stopped.